Welcome to the second viewing. We view things twice so you can listen once. I'm Kyle.
I'm Dan.
And welcome to a brand new episode of the second viewing podcast, everybody. We're at it again with a brand new episode for y'all, talking about a film that may or may not hold up on the second time we view it, of course.
Now, if you haven't heard of our podcast before, we're a podcast where, of course, we view it twice so you can listen once, meaning we would take a look at movies for the second time around and see if they hold up, etc. So what is the movie this week, Kyle?
Well, this movie this week is, of course, the Yorgos Lanthimos 2009 Greek film, Dogtooth.
You know, I didn't actually know that Yorgos Lanthimos, am I saying that right?
That sounds pretty right to me. Yeah.
I didn't know that he did The Lobster. I was unaware that.
Oh yeah, he definitely did. That was kind of the catalyst of why we decided to do this film. That, and also because we will have a special guest on the second half of this episode. We'll have a great friend of ours coming in for the second half to talk about this film because it's a favorite of his. We might not spoil it. We'll say
surprise guest, right?
Surprise guest, and also watch through the entire video because there's a lot of good content. Don't forget to smash that motherfucking like button.
Smash that motherfucking like button.
That's what we're about over here. So please do. But one way we like to start off every single podcast we do, at least lately, is talking about what we've been up to in the week previous in terms of things we may have watched, things we may have participated in, games we played, whatever. Daniel, what have you been up to?
Okay, well, I'm going to bring up two things. One was a TV show, and one is a movie. Number one was a TV show that I think I mentioned on the last podcast I had wanted to see.
Okay.
Or I was looking forward to watching, which is Vice Principals, which is Danny McBride, right. And I can't remember what the fuck his name is. But anyways, the two of them play Vice Principals. Bill Murray has just retired as the principal, and they're duking it out for his job. They hate each other at first. They end up teaming up. I thought that I was really into that. And
Bill Murray's in the show?
Bill Murray is in the first episode briefly, and he doesn't come back for the entire first season. So
spoilers on that.
Sorry.
Fair enough. But like overall, good feelings with the show. Did you like it?
I did like it. It's very Danny McBride branded.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like he's got a almost. I don't want to say grotesque and I don't want to say dark. I want to say both of those words mashed into one. Like that's the feeling I get from Danny McBride's comedy sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, he is a little bit like raunchy and absurd kind of like, even if I always think of him and This Is the End for some reason, where he like has Channing Tatum as his slave. It's hilarious shit.
I mean, that's kind of the brand of comedy that goes into
so it's similar throughout that a little bit.
Yeah, fairly similar. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
It's pretty funny though. I had some fun with that. Now the other thing was I've been meaning to watch Leon the Professional, and I did get to do that, which by the way is a fantastic movie. If you haven't,
what would your Letterboxd score be on that?
Fuck! Don't grill me on this right now, dude.
I'm just curious, man. Honestly. By the way, if you guys don't know, we're on Letterboxd. That's letterboxd.com/TSV. So,
what about you, Kyle?
Hold on. Sorry to interrupt. What did you like? What did you think of Leon the Professional?
I thought it was fantastic. I dug that movie. A matter of fact, one of Leon's kind of shticks is that he drinks a lot of milk. They never actually bring up why, but I would assume that it's good for the bones, and he's about being physically fit and kind of on your toes to some degree.
Are you trying to get into milk? Is that like your...
No, dude. As soon as middle of the movie, I had to fucking pause it and go get a glass of milk because I was like craving a glass of milk.
That's how you know product placement works.
Yeah,
I know it's just milk and not really a product, but that's how you know.
It's fucking true. The dude made me want to go fucking have a glass of milk.
Honestly, sometimes a fresh glass of milk is nothing wrong with it. It's a good time.
I had 2 or 3 glasses of milk. I was eating some chocolate chips and having a glass of milk.
I was a weirdo who once used to put like ice in his milk to keep it real cold. And I would drink it fast so it wouldn't melt. It was kind of a challenge.
Dude, that just sounds fucking annoying and horrible.
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't great. I stopped doing it.
Ruins milk.
It used to be like a summer thing. Anyways, I won't get too far into it. But what I've been watching, I watched a few things. I watched like 3 things, I guess I'll note. 2 that are pretty similar in a way, kind of. Actually, not at all, but they all kind of intermingle in a way, in my opinion. Is I saw Ghost in the Shell.
Oh yeah, actually, I you know what? I started to watch that, but it was a a free version online
Oh, was it really
streaming.
bad? Okay.
That was pretty bad, so I gave up on it. But it does visuals look, and that's the reason why I gave up. Is visuals look pretty sweet.
Like it was screening at like the cheap theater in our area, and I went and saw it. And honestly, Ghost in the Shell got a lot of bad rap for. Actually, I don't even know anymore, to be honest. I think a lot of it had to do with some of the like the casting and this and that about the film. But all the remarks aside, I thought it was pretty good. Like honestly, I've seen Ghost in the Shell, like the animated film, the anime. I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, if not more, like a while ago, right? And I never was a huge fan of it, just like thought it was pretty cool. It was one of those movies, especially anime movies, like everyone says to watch, and you kind of like have to check out maybe some point. And I would also continue to say that it's really cool. If you're into like cyberpunky kind of stuff, it's interesting in that way. And honestly, I think it translates pretty well to this like adaptation, I guess. No, it's not perfect. It's a little fucking weird at times, and it's just not perfect. Some of the performances are really bad, and the story is kind of sloppy. But at the end of the day, like I thought it was a pretty solid flick.
Yeah,
I would recommend.
What's your Letterboxd score?
Thanks for asking. It's a solid 3 out of 5. I thought it was a good time.
All right, a little bit higher than Beauty and the Beast, which, by the way, we need to take back that score.
That's a 2 out of 5 for sure.
Well, yeah, it's a 2 out of 5. It's not a 2.5 out of 5.
I'm gonna change it right now.
Yeah, you should change it on the Letterboxd.
The other thing I watched, I know you've seen before, is Ex Machina.
I love that movie.
I was into it, but a little underwhelmed, I'll be honest. I thought it was just a little, like, fucking obvious. Is that just me? Like,
to some degree, but it's like there's two options to me that were both obvious, but they were so both obvious that it was like, wait, which one? So it was kind of... It wasn't that you were totally in the dark. It was that you kind of knew the direction, but you just didn't know which one of the two was going to happen.
I guess I would agree with you on that, but I will say that like once the direction of choice occurred, I was like, really? That's how it ends? That's how I felt. I was just like, the film felt so smart and sleek leading up to that when it ended on such a generic note, I was like, okay.
There's a couple of I want to talk about it more, but I can't without fucking spoiling it.
That's just my personal opinion on it, and like I thought about it for a while. Saw 3.5 on Letterboxd, in case you're wondering.
Dude, I would. I'm worried to increase the score of anything I originally want to give it right off the bat anymore, but
like it's not.
Yeah,
a bad
you know
film,
what? I think I'll agree with your 3.5. I would say maybe a 4. I'd have to think about it more. But
I don't want that to seem like I feel negative towards the movie. I generally like it.
Oh, that's a pretty fucking good score, right? That's like 75%.
That's a decent score. I'm into it. I just thought that the movie was doing so a lot of new ideas and a lot of interesting things that by the time the climax of the film came to be, it felt like a little bit of a letdown in a way. That's how I felt.
Right.
The other movie I'll just mention that like I think I was like not a lot of talk about it. It's Lost in Translation. I finally watched for the first time.
Oh yeah, what did you think of that?
Fantastic fucking movie. I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant.
That's right up your alley too.
Yeah, it's Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson, a very young Scarlett Johansson also. And it's just this really simple character study on people who are going through a transition in their life and how they adjust with that and the pitfalls that come of that, and how the characters in this film choose to deal with.
They make Bill, like, when did that movie come out?
2003.
They make Bill Murray then look like he looks now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he feels older in that film. Like,
yeah.
Whereas at the time it was like, dude, Bill Murray looks old, but he kind of wasn't. But now, yeah, I get what you're seeing.
Yeah, like.
And I think that may have been a purposeful idea just so they could drive home like the age difference between the two leads in the film.
Yeah.
Again, I won't go too much into it just because not.
But no, I think that's a great movie too. Those are some cool movies to check out. I didn't realize you hadn't seen Ex Machina, or did you just rewatch it?
I actually had never seen it. I bought it for my birthday 2 years ago. Me and you hung out with Isaac and we had quite a weekend, and I bought my Ex Machina and we never watched it, and or at least that weekend we hadn't. I know you'd seen it since, but I just freaking owned it in the wrapping on Blu-ray and never watched it.
Oh shit! And
finally got around to watching it, and I don't regret watching it. I thought it was a good film. I'd recommend it, but it was hyped up a lot for me, and I thought it was going to maybe take artificial intelligence storylines in a cool direction. It really didn't do that for me, though.
You know what? Before we start jumping in and talking about the movie this week, I gotta say that I think sometimes when movies are overhyped, it's the closer they get to appealing to a more mainstream audience. It's
Right,
not
okay.
necessarily because like I'll recognize that our tastes are maybe a little bit more selective than most. So I'd say the more hype you hear around a movie, you can assume that it appealed to a wider audience,
Well,
not necessarily to you.
I would agree with that for the most part, but in this case, I was hearing it from a lot of people who I like respect their like
your
artistic opinion on and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
And so for that reason alone, even then I was like, oh shit, well there's something a little bit more to this. I'll check it out.
Right.
And the trailer looked great. Film is beautiful. If anything, the cinematography and the set design and the overall visualization of the film is brilliant. I think it's sleek, it's simple, it's incredibly creative in parts. But in terms of the plot, I think it was just a little bit lazy.
Right.
But that's all I'll say for now. Moving on quite seamlessly into the film this week. If you guys don't know, we've already reviewed and praised quite highly the film The Lobster that came out last year. Starring, what's his name again? Good old Carell, not Steve Carell. Why am I calling him Steve Carell right now?
The Lobster?
Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Colin, I'm thinking Carell, I don't know. But Colin Farrell. Anyways.
I see the connection.
Don't worry about it too much. We talked the highest praise of that film as we possibly could last year. We reviewed it on the podcast. Feel free to check that out. You guys can hear our thoughts on it. That was personally my first experience with the Yorgos Lanthimos film. Since then, I had seen this film Dogtooth in question, and I brought it up to you to do on the podcast, and you saw it pretty recently, right?
Yeah, very recently. I didn't realize until even more recent, like after watching the film, I found out from you that this was directed by the same guy who did The Lobster.
That's probably my bad. I thought I had maybe like mentioned that to
honestly, you may have, but it went over my head if you did.
Fair enough.
But I can definitely see the resemblance, especially with the odd and somewhat kind of out of place animal symbolism.
See, I didn't quite get much of that, to be honest with you. The animal stuff, but elaborate. Tell me what you think.
Okay. So, okay, before we jump into like a little bit of a plot synopsis, because I think we'll do that.
It's not a bad idea.
But basically, there's a point in the movie where it's brought up to some of the children that are living separate and apart from the rest of mainstream society in the world under their parents' close guidance. It's brought up to them that a cat is very, very dangerous.
Right. Okay.
And then they also start barking like dogs in order to scare away cats. And this comes up a couple of times throughout the movie, and some of the kids blame their mistakes on cats because they're brought up to be this fucking almost like evil entity to them. But to me, it was like this, I don't know, like I draw the connection now knowing that they're the same director, that like being turned into an animal and acting like an animal, or almost being turned into an animal by their parents, is like this loose animal connection. I don't know. It's like, it's as if this director views life as a human so closely related to an animal that it ends up being a symbol in his films.
Like the lines are blurred between what's like reality and what's being taught.
Or just that maybe that he's trying to say that we're as much animals as the rest of the animal kingdom.
I guess where I like saw that was morally based on how the people in this film don't know any better in terms of what an animal is. Whereas in The Lobster, it was clearly defined between, traditional characteristics of certain animals and the characteristics of the characters we're introduced to.
Yeah.
And having that relationship kind of made for comic relief and made for serious moments. Whereas in this movie, we can only assume how a cat should act and how a dog should act. And these children in the film, or the children of the parents in the film, only know as much as their parents have taught them. They don't have any outerworldly expectations of how a cat should be or how a dog should be. They only really know what their parents have told them.
Right.
And that might be
which is maybe what makes them almost closer to the animals that we consider like cats and dogs and lions and tigers and bears and all that kind of shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if
But I think there's something cool to discuss that maybe we'll find out a little bit more on the second viewing.
Right, it'd be nice to take another look at that for sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna note that now in the first half that I'm interested to see the animal symbolism. I think I did the same thing for the Lobster cast.
Right.
Let's talk more about the animal symbolism the second time around because I think that intrigues me a little bit. I'd be curious to know if in any of his other films there's this connection to animals in some way. Because, I mean, look at the names. Dogtooth, the Lobster.
Right.
Animals seem to be so present in the two movies I've seen.
Alps, as far as I know, don't. I've been a bit of a fan since The Lobster. I've watched his films. And off the top of my head, though, just first viewing, glance, I can't make a direct connection. But again, there might be something there I missed. It's possible.
Anyways, we're gonna
I will say that his next film is The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Oh, right.
So,
back to animals.
It's possible.
Maybe it's hard to say, really. But
we'll find out when that film is released later this year.
Do you want to maybe give a little plot synopsis on this guy?
I'll give a brief plot because there is kind of a...
Without giving too much away.
Yeah, for new listeners out there and past listeners, this first half of the podcast we like to spend talking just kind of our initial first viewing thoughts on the film and give a quick rundown of what the film is about and the plot that takes place. And on the second half, we encourage the viewers to go ahead and watch the film themselves so we can come back and we have seen it for a second time this time around. We can then go in and talk about some more spoilery things and elements that have grown and developed and things we've noticed, talk about animal symbolism, things like that may have come to our attention the second time around. But just getting strictly into the brief plot, and I'll try to be as spoiler-free as I can, of course. Essentially, in Dogtooth, we're introduced to a family that, as you said, is choosing to break away from the current mainstream society and try to, associate themselves with an older form of society in which things are this very controlled and, perfect point of view of maybe, say, like a 1950s USA environment where you have your picket fence and your husband and wife and your 3 kids and everything's happy-go-lucky and fine and you live together in harmony. But the way in which this film chooses to... extrapolate that in the plot is that this family is actually guarded away from society, and they're put together on a single plot of land. I think besides the father who has access to the outside community, I don't think we ever see the mother leave.
No, the mother never leaves.
And so the family itself lives just on this property, this house and this backyard, a swimming pool, and they live and they thrive there, and they're raising a family and experiencing their day-to-day life just on this plot of land. And similar to a film we never covered on the cast, but that I think we both enjoyed. I can't remember if you liked it or not, but Room, where it's this idea of this very sheltered to the extreme idea of raising someone in a society, but also an environment where all they know is, 4 walls in a way. Where they
with no concept of what's beyond or out there.
Exactly. They're given books and they're
led away from it, if anything.
Totally.
Right?
They're given certain amounts of literature and books and knowledge to gain upon that. But even then, that is controlled by, in this film's instance, the parents. And without giving really away exact plot points of what happens in the story, I will just more so say that the film spends its time kind of seeing the characters, in particular the children, the 2 daughters and the brother, grow as people and also experience certain events while living in this house. While they're really getting older, I mean, they're all coming into adulthood. They're all, they're not necessarily kids anymore. And
it's clearly a transition point for the parents raising them too.
Yes,
right?
And it's a very radical idea of raising children. So themselves don't even really know exactly how they should be going about this for the rest of their lives.
You can tell the parents are struggling with this with where they're going to next, because you can tell that they want their son and daughter to continue the family line, but they also are going about it as carefully as they possibly can for as far as exposing them to the outside world.
The film kind of reminds me of the opposite of that movie, Captain Fantastic, but in an extreme sense.
Yes, yeah. That's a good way to put it, actually.
Or like in that film, the father and mother choose to have their family live in the outdoors and be who they are without any of society's rules in a very carefree and sheltered but positive environment.
Yes.
Whereas in this film, not necessarily that it's negative, but it's sheltered to such an extent that the children don't really have a say in the matter of how they should be living their lives. That freedom does not exist.
Yeah, it's sheltered to the point of in capture, or like it's sheltered to the point where they're fucking captures, they're in jail almost. Whereas in Captain Fantastic, they're sheltered to the point of absolute freedom, really.
Well, it's a weird thing, too, in this film where, although they are captured and hidden away, they don't necessarily...
They don't know that.
They don't know that, and they don't know what to expect.
Which is maybe almost what makes it cruel in some way.
Well, it's that's what I think was kind of fascinating, is because as a viewer and as a member of, mainstream current society, we view it as cruel, but we're really looking into a very niche, very small sliver of how life could be that we don't understand.
Yeah, because we've never, ever been a part of it. And
our little ingrained ideas and morals are against it, because we're like, of course not. Everyone should have a say to some degree how they should live their lives, and they should understand.
Right, and because we understand what's outside of that.
Totally.
Right. So... More
or less, though, I think that is what helps this film kind of have this back and forth idea of, okay, what's going on here? What's right? What's wrong? And I will say, like a normal Yorgos Lanthimos film, there's a weird sense of comedy throughout this movie.
Yeah, hey.
It's so dark.
Yeah.
But so subtle, but at the moments where you notice it, it really works.
Like... the instant when they go to first learning to pretend to be dogs to their brother's funeral.
Fantastic.
That point had me fucking laughing for a second.
It's weird. Yeah.
I want to bring up for a second the opening scene, which I think is a good descriptor of how this movie throws you into what it's trying to do, which is basically these three kids deciding to play a game by running their finger under the tap and seeing how long they could hold. Like the winner would have their finger under the hot water the longest, kind of a thing. And they're talking about how to do it. Well, do we use 3 separate taps? And then they discussed, no, that could be, then somebody could easily cheat or not have the tap as hot. Or do we use all the same tap? And if we're using all the same tap, then are we timing it, or are we just watching visually to see?
Right.
And so they discuss how to play this game. Excuse me. So you have this sense of, first of all, why the fuck are they making up this very obscure game when I'm looking at them and I can tell that they're in adulthood? And it seems weird to do. And also, there's this sense, right away you have this feeling as if they're held in a compound, or they're special in some way, or they're different from you or I. Well, and I think that all comes through very seamlessly in that first fucking scene as they decide to play this game, which is very cool. So, and I think the same is true for the Lobster in some extent. It's like right away in the first scene of the Lobster, second scene of the Lobster, you accept that he's going to a hotel to find a mate, and if not, is being turned into an animal. And that's that's the rules. That's it. It doesn't have to make fucking logical sense in this world. That's it.
What I will say about this film, and though in contrast, is that we get this kind of weird world, weird upbringing, but yet we are aware that the regular everyday world exists within it. Whereas in The Lobster, it feels like an alternate universe.
Yeah, that's right. That's a very good point.
And it's all over. It's not. It's in the it's in the malls and the shopping centers, and it's at the the hotel that they stay at. It's widespread. Whereas in Dogtooth, this kind of awkwardness and this weird way of living only exists in this house. And we get small glimpses of the outside world throughout the film, or I would even just say, outside the house, really.
We even have a character that comes from the outside world that visits the house.
Yes, and that
though she's...
Well, that does lead to some certain plot points, and it extends the plot and certain characters into some ways. And in fact, it's really interesting in a lot of ways, because it really brings things into perspective. Because my first time watching this film, I wasn't really sure what was going on exactly for the first like maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, I'm following, I'm looking at what's going on, the characters, who they are, and the setting. Mm-hmm. But the setting in question was a little hard to take in. I was like, well, what exactly is this house, and what exactly is beyond this point, if there is even a point beyond to worry about?
Right. I'm going to hold myself to this in the second half and see if I can come up with the answer. But I think for me, remembering the first viewing, the point where I almost realized what was going on, or what the parents were trying, or how the parents were trying to raise their kids, is when they referred to a word, or used a word that wasn't the same meaning as the word. They said phone, or like, what did
zombie? Zombie was like a plant.
Yeah, I think phone was the first one that I heard, and I can't remember what they changed the meaning of phone to me, phone as in telephone. Well, I can't remember what the parents changed that meaning to be, but I got the picture that, I get it. They slipped up on a word and made up their own meaning for that word, because they're sheltering their kids to not know what a telephone is, and not know what a fucking airplane is, and not know whatever.
Looking back at us just talking about those elements of the movie, it makes me realize, like, as the movie progresses, how out of control the parents actually are in the movie, and how they're not necessarily well prepared for how they're choosing to raise their children, because they're slipping up on these everyday things that in a way are causing serious repercussions in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like if you could teach a fucking, I don't know, bunny rabbit to talk. Or let's use a Rick and Morty example just for fun. If you could fucking teach your dog to talk by giving him a super smart device, you might just end all of humanity because of how shocking that is to a dog, like a dog coming into new consciousness, or the kids that you're raising at such a small understanding of the world, to all of a sudden be break the door open in some way by introducing to them something as simple as, I don't know, porn or whatever it might be. Well, that just might shatter their whole fucking being, or like all of a sudden break what you've built over the last 20
Well, it's a very jarring idea, where you feel like you understand everything around you, but when something so foreign comes into these ideas, everything doesn't make sense all of a sudden, and it shatters what you understand.
Yeah, and that could be true for. We might find that example in real life.
Well, people
maybe
feel
not
that
to
way.
The same extent.
Well, yeah, maybe not to such an extent as we're talking about, but people feel that way about anything they're not. That's unknown to them, or something they're not quite comfortable with, and they often react to it in a somewhat negative way, or they react to it in a way that they're not comfortable with, because people just don't always accept things they don't understand, more or less.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's in human nature to really kind of react to that however you're brought up. And just what makes this film interesting is because the way these people are brought up is so specific. And it's always weird to me because, like, this idea of, like, the 50s or, like, a perfect family setting is not necessarily, if you go back in history, it's not really a true thing that ever existed. It's just very romanticized and film.
The white picket fence, and
everyone
can own a perfect.
That may have happened to like 2 families ever. Like, I mean, the 50s weren't all like sunshine and rainbows for everybody.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, just based on what I've heard and read, not on any real facts, I think it was affordable for people to have what could be perceived as the white picket fence, but also that wasn't realistic, because life isn't that simple.
It's not
right?
like that. Even if it was possible, it wasn't going to be that widespread.
Yeah, if you know.
But I think we'll probably see that fold out in a way in the second half. And as we said, we will have a nice special guest joining us. So be tuned to stay for that. We're going to have our second thoughts on Dogtooth after the break.
Thanks for tuning in. Adios.
And we're back.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Of course, as you know, we just finished watching Dogtooth for the second time. But besides that, we have a special guest here with us on the second half of the podcast. Our good friend Gavin Baird from Gavin's Things on Instagram. Is that the best way to shout you out?
Yes.
Gavin, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it. For those out there who don't know, Gavin has helped us out in the past with some little things. The new intro for the second season, the second viewing, was done by our boy Gavin over here. And he's contributed some other things here and there, and we've we've loved working with him in the past, and we're
You
glad him on the
might
show.
remember him from the Autumn's Breeze episode.
Yes,
not too long ago.
He played the classic character Ed on that episode, featuring the film or the web series itself, which you can always still find at autumnsbreeze.com. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Is there anything you want to say before we get started here, Gavin?
I don't think so.
Classic Ed response. Okay, we're gonna roll with that. So moving on quite swiftly into Dogtooth. Now I will say before we get talking about the specifics, the reason we kind of did this movie is because Gavin has been hounding us to do it for like 2 months. So not that we weren't
Gavin
excited.
Inspiration on this one.
Not that we weren't excited to cover it, but I mean it really did fall down a little bit onto you, Gavin. So I'm just curious, why do you like this movie so much? Give me the skinny.
Because Dogtooth is a classic.
Enough said. Okay, I really like it. Okay. This guy, do you do Letterboxd?
Yeah.
Nice. I like Letterboxd too. It's one of my favorite websites.
Gavin's things on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
You
Also,
want to check out my reviews?
please do. And also, while you're at it, check out thesecondviewing.com/TSV.
Well, check out.
Wait.
Well,
I mean,
if you have time.
Letterboxd.com/TSV. Jeez Louise.
It was
All right.
it was 5 stars on Letterboxd too. Just so you know.
Now the
Oh
audience,
shit! Wow, they don't even have to go anymore. So
they get it
might as
now.
well just quit while you're ahead.
It's a perfect movie. I would be so bold.
It's a perfect
There's not a
film.
single flaw in this movie.
I don't know. I think
It's got everything you want. Love.
lust.
There's some
Incest.
inconsistency where the fish come from.
Yeah, that's true.
So
They
I
don't
might be
explain
like worth
that.
a 4.9, really.
You can't do that on Letterboxd.
I have to disagree
You can't do that on
with
Letterboxd. Go do 4.5 if you really want to bring it
Well,
down.
unfortunately, it looks like you're stuck at 4.5. So you're kind of maxed out there, I think.
Sorry, bud. But
Well,
don't worry about it.
We do know. Well, Dan's just, wrong on this.
All right, fact. All right, I guess this is proven. Okay, moving into the movie. So, of course, you might not be aware, Gavin. I don't know if you've gone this far into an episode or not, but more or less on the second half, we talk about what was better, what was worse about the movie, and of course, we get right into the spoilers of the film without having to worry about, spoiling it.
Exactly, and we did leave off. There's a couple of points we wanted to discuss what we talked about in the first half that we'll revisit at some point too. But I think
Sure.
First and foremost, what after a second or potentially many viewings of this movie, Gav, what strikes you most after the first viewing? What hit you the hardest?
Probably the incest scene.
Yes. It's very, very Riverdale, very, very Game of Thrones.
Never seen any of those.
It's very much like that.
I'd have to agree with that, though.
I will also agree with you, though, due to the fact that at the end of that scene, she makes a great quote to Rocky IV, which is so hilarious.
I didn't realize it was Rocky IV at all. As a matter of fact, I thought it was out of place. That brought up my Letterboxd score because at first I was like, okay, the fish inconsistency. Now there's
Well,
also
you know how she's like punching early in the film,
Yeah.
like Rocky,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. You guess you make the assumption they've somehow seen Rocky at some point in this household. I don't know. Specifically Rocky IV, which is hilarious.
I find when she is jerking her brother off, it speaks on the duality of man a little bit.
the duality.
That's
of man.
that's just what I got, though. So
I couldn't agree more.
I could be a bit off. But
But also like man and woman, right? Like those are the dualities you're talking about. Like there's a balance here and there as well.
I would have to agree.
All right.
But what about the scene when he's groping both of his sisters in the bathtub? Then is that the triality?
I think that's just
Just fucked.
I can't speak for the director myself, but
I will not continue to.
I think, sometimes it's like a guilty pleasure scene. Like, you just want to see it on screen, so you put it in there.
Right, fair enough. Also, R.I.P. to the youngest sister. Rest in peace.
Yeah, actually, quick, serious moment. That,
Yeah.
her,
real.
I don't
For
know her name.
realsies.
I think it was Mary Stowney?
Yes.
Yeah, she passed away a couple days ago, actually. Or weeks, I suppose, at this point.
She was the bright light of this movie.
She really was. She had a lot of charm, a lot of, charisma, that childlike wonder out of the three. I appreciate that. One thing I noticed, actually, is that you don't ever hear the kids' names. They never say any character names.
No, they don't.
That's
well,
kind of weird.
any of the character names except for Christina, who is the visitor.
Right.
That's the only character name we hear.
Kind of weird. Oh, actually, according to Wikipedia, the mother and father get their names. Oh, no, never mind. Sorry, mother, father. I'm reading incorrectly over here. It is just Christina.
Yeah.
That is a weird thing, though. It's like, out of all the characters to choose, it's like the prostitute mistress kind of woman that comes into their lives. Is it because she's the only outside character coming into this family, maybe?
Could be.
That could be the
maybe
reasoning?
they only acknowledge characters and names like from elsewhere and not necessarily within. Like they're part of their own clan, unrecognizable except by the clan.
That's one thing that always like strikes me about like the idea within this movie where it's like, how much are they allowing from the outside into this? And where is like the lines between that?
Well, I think like they allude to it kind of throughout the movie when they hear the word pussy and they call it. The mother explains that pussy is a word for lamp.
Right,
That's
but like
bright pussy.
Like us as a viewer, we know which things we know which ones are like correct or which ones are like accurate. So it's weird when it's like Christina comes and everything she kind of talks about is correct. It's kind of interesting. It's like everything else her parents talk about is incorrect.
Yeah.
Well, not everything, but like.
Well, there's not a lot of overlapping. Mind you, she introduces them to a couple of things they don't know about, in that like hair gel and the sparkling headband, and then the last thing is the word zombie. Oh yeah, keyboard. There's some keyboard fondling.
I believe that speaks on the duality of man.
I think I didn't quite agree with you the first time around, but now that you bring it up, yes, I think it is. Can you spell out duality on the keyboard, right? That's kind of like an interaction, a physical aspect with a technological aspect. There's those a lot of dimensions to that.
And then the second connection between her vagina.
And also like a keyboard like a piano.
You can play like a piano.
Uh-huh.
Especially if you know how to play it well, you can sing to it.
It's always good to know where the C note
Playing
is.
that pussy like peekaboo.
Sure enough, a little yachty in the house here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, one thing I definitely wanted to bring up about this movie in terms of like a second viewing is it's always interesting to see a film where you're kind of confused on the first viewing, like how is this world set up? How are things, having some sort of like success and failure state, and where actually in the world are things making sense from? Because it's a weird world, right? You don't understand this house the first time you're watching it. At least myself, I was like, how the hell do these people live? What are the terms that they live by? And when you're watching for a second time and you know enough how that works, there's a lot of little things that just feel kind of charming and kind of silly off the get-go, rather than kind of creepy and like unfamiliar.
Yeah, the tone does change the second time around for sure.
It felt a little less. Yeah. It felt a little less dark and just a bit more like melancholic, kind of just like mid-tone for me.
And it felt more like a dark comedy in a certain way, almost.
That seems to be his thing in a way, though. Yorgos, Mr. Lanthimos, if you will. But maybe not in his next film, Killing of a Sacred Deer. It's supposed to be pretty
bleak.
There you go. That's the word of the week. Bleak.
Well, something I didn't mention in the first half of the cast was when I first started watching the movie for the first time, which was alone. I thought that the subtitle track was messed up because they started by referring to things like a motor track is a fucking word for, I don't know, a bird or something like that. Or
right, yeah. They're saying, or like, what is it? Is C the first thing they say, or is that?
Oh yeah, the C, like
it's like a fan or something.
Oh no, it's like a chair. I think.
Yeah. So you immediately understand. You're immediately getting these like weird fucking concepts, and I could totally see you like not knowing the subtitle tracks we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, is this a poor translation?
That's what I thought at first, but I found out later that no, it wasn't at all.
I'm gonna be kind of straight up with you guys. Dogtooth is a weird second watch. I think it's not necessarily a movie that like changed a lot for me the second time around.
I think the tone was a huge thing, which changed like the feel of the movie, right? But I don't think it was big enough for me to feel different about the movie. It was just more of like that surprise was kind of taken away from me, so I was able to pay attention more to the little things and like the filmmaking aspects of it, which I can always appreciate. But I was kind of hoping to find a little bit more like Easter eggy things, And right. I don't know if I got as much of that, unfortunately. Right.
But you were wondering about the animals. How do you feel about the animals still?
Not as strongly.
You were like.
Well, the thing is, I think
you were torqued on those animals.
I think I said the same thing in the Lobster cast because I always thought that there was like some kind of animal symbolism there, but now I kind of think it's just like this. I think it's supposed to be a mild contrast, almost, not necessarily.
Well, it's like another thing they mention, like the way they are talking about like the sea and shit like that. It's just like another way to introduce.
Yeah, it's I guess it both movies have Yorgos that I've seen, both have this, like, they build this certain world, and I guess some of the things as they introduce the world is animals, right?
Right,
Just
yeah.
one of the things that you come across when you're talking about creating a new world. So I guess it's more so that than it is super symbolic. It's actually more hilarious in this one than it is in the Lobster film.
100%. The lobster is always terrifying because you're making that like human connection, and this one it's like the cat is the most terrifying thing alive, and that alone is hilarious.
Yeah, there's a great scene, probably my favorite scene in the movie, where the youngest daughter starts bashing, and we don't actually see this part. We see the family wake up as she's allegedly bashing the son's knees with a fucking hammer, and then when the parents come into the room, she blames it on a fucking cat that comes in.
It
She's
is
a
alleged
scoundrel.
though. It could have been the cat. Like, we
It
don't know.
could have been the cat. Matter of fact, the dad slaps the son and said, "Did you do what we talked about? Did you bark or whatever?"
I hope so.
I mean, I think it's likely that he was just trying to build up the fact that cats are that dangerous, so he wasn't going to fucking say to his daughter, "I know that you fucking took the hammer to the knee."
The sliding door was cracked open, so
True.
I mean,
True.
it's not like the daughter would have came from outside. So it's
No.
like, why would it be open?
And they didn't have much time.
Well, the cat. I mean,
They got right out of bed.
it's
too.
pretty clear.
You know
Dan.
what?
It's
Fuck.
pretty clear to me,
God
Dan.
damn it. The more I
What
think about
happened?
it had to be the fucking cat.
I mean, he was everywhere and nowhere at once. That damn cat, and he was also blind. So I mean, sneaky
And
as
at
fuck.
one point he was dead as fuck, too.
Poor cat, ripped a cat.
Maybe
What, cats
this
can't
was like
have
his-
brothers?
I
Like-
was just saying, it could be his brother seeking
That's true.
revenge.
That's a good
He
point.
smelt the carcass of the dead
Dogtooth
cat.
2.
See, I think there's this whole backstory about the family of cats that we're not like cracking through the surface.
Right,
Like,
there's
Yeah,
a story
that's
about
true.
the family of cats who live outside the compound and not the family who lives inside the compound.
can we talk about why the son needs black eyeliner for a moment, and because blue is unnatural?
I kind of forget that.
Oh, yeah, that was at the dinner table discussion. I didn't realize they were talking about eyeliner.
Me
actually.
neither. I did not realize that was the eyeliner. Okay, so I have no real reason to believe what the fuck they're talking about. Black eyeliner. That makes more sense.
It is more natural.
It is more natural. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
someone's
and
soul.
he laughs about it being blue. That it's like the biggest smile we see on the son the entire movie, even when he's fucking his sister and Christina.
Well, he has a pretty good smile on his face while his father is describing what his father's talking about on the song.
Oh, that's true.
So he's
yeah.
quite
Frank
happy.
Sinatra.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
No, it's his dad.
Oh, that's his grandpa. Yeah,
It's his dad. I'm pretty sure.
you didn't know
Isn't
Frank
it-
was part of the fam.
Yeah, Mr. Sinatra. That's the
Yeah.
Sinatra family. Their last name's Sinatra. Come on, Cap. Some big fan of this movie.
Fucking obvious,
Dude.
there, buddy.
Jeez
buddy
Louise.
boy.
Dogtooth. You thought this was
Fuck you,
Cat?
Dan.
Oh, quote of the season. I think. Did you watch Cat Tooth? Are you mixed right now?
Maybe, I don't know.
God damn it, dude.
I think we have Ed on the cast. We just didn't realize. You're in character right now. I feel like you might be in character.
Still can't find Autumn though.
Oh, he found. Her.
Autumnsbreeze.com. Quick plug.
Quick plug. I mean, there's VHSs are coming. VHSs are coming. If anybody wants to
That's very true.
get one up, please let us know. I had a fun time watching Dogtooth, though, again. You know, I really, I'm starting to like Lanthimos' films. I've watched his entire filmography at this point. Looking forward to some future work from him. Perhaps we can maybe give our final thoughts on this thing. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I think the major difference I noticed the second time around was the difference in tone. But even after discussing it for the first, like after watching it for the first time and just chatting about it on the cast, I did see the mild humor to it. Mind you, I think it was more prevalent the second time around for me, and that was just the tonal shift. But other than that, like you said, not many huge differences, though I say it is worth a second watch because you are going to pick up on things like the blue and black eyeliner and the other little tidbits that are kind of nicely nestled in this movie.
Clearly we didn't, and it takes like a seventh watch like this guy to actually
Just ask yourself, where the
pick it up.
fuck did the fish come from? Where did the live fish come from?
I'm not too worried about the fish.
Sure, Dan.
I'm not too worried about the damn fish, I'll be honest. This is the kind of film that is like so tightly wound together that like little things like that don't faze me. It's the kind of movie that you know is like one idea thought out so well. and I think it shines in this film. And I mean, I'm not in the kind of mood after this film right now saying, oh, this really made me feel a certain way after watching it again. But at the end of the day, it's just a really, it's a very challenging film, but it's also very versatile in the way that it's comedic and it has these dark moments. And it's this kind of world that we've been talking about that Yorgos Lanthimos makes in his films, or at least the ones that I've currently seen. His later work sounds a little bit interesting, to say the least. But nonetheless, it's this kind of like dynamic he contributes with his characters and his settings, I guess. It's so funny to think of the wide world of the Lobster being this like interesting world, and where he just creates this like house to be this interesting world. And I've said it a million times in the cast before, but I love when like a house or a setting can become a character itself. And it works as a good set piece in this movie, and I just think it's a really well executed movie. And of course, I would recommend it on a second viewing. But my opinion doesn't matter on this at all, because we have our good friend Gavin right next to us here. Gavin, would you recommend this film for someone who has maybe seen it once and wants to watch it again, or perhaps someone who's just never seen it before?
Yes.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Gavin Baird.
We got to shout out the cinematography too.
Oh, okay.
Dimios Bakatakis. They shot the whole movie on the 50mm lens.
There you go.
One lens.
It's 35 as well, right? The 35 film, they shot on 35?
35mm.
Yes, right. Cool. Very neat.
Fun
Good facts.
No lights either.
No lights.
Actually, yeah, you could. There's a noticeable
tell, yeah.
scene where, like, when the father is outside looking for his eldest daughter.
Right.
Where you can notice that they're definitely not using any lights other than the ones that are attached to the side of the compound.
Well, I think there's another like evening scene where it kind of seemed the same to me. Like there's like this courtyard that's kind of lit a bit, but you can tell it's just by like some random like house lights that are on, house lamps or something.
Yeah, but I briefly want to talk about the last scene, like the scene where the eldest daughter jumps into the trunk, and when the dad pulls up to work, now her being totally out of the compound.
Right.
Do you think she made it through the night?
I'm going to go ahead and say no. Definitely not.
You think
that
she's
chick's dead for
dead?
sure. Yeah, definitely dead.
Yeah.
They don't know. She probably knows how to live. She's definitely dead.
Like,
she's also.
Do you mean like her fate? Like she's burdened to death? Like if she's not dead in the trunk now, she will be dead soon?
Well, that's not what I was thinking, but I kind of think that now. Yeah, like right. I mean, she wasn't raised in modern society how to survive. So I mean. Later skater. That's all I gotta say to that.
Later skater. All right.
But I mean, in terms of just the night, she was like, that tooth's gonna get infected pretty quick as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, she done fucked up that tooth pretty good.
She's probably cold too. Gavin made a good point. She wasn't even wearing like any proper clothes in that trunk all night. I don't know. Maybe she survived the night. I don't know, but definitely not the whole day.
Maybe she moved in with Christina.
That's the goals. That's goals right there.
Yeah,
Squad
maybe
goals.
she traded some licks for a place to a room.
I mean, that's not the worst deal.
Yeah, no, that's actually the best deal she would have gotten so far for licks. But
that's a good point, Dan.
Thank you. I'd like to think that she made it out, man, and she fucking she's out of there. I think maybe she gets hit by a bus shortly afterwards because she doesn't understand what it is. She thinks it's a big yellow friend, but.
I think she might get eaten by a cat.
The cat is still out there.
And maybe she's just actually out there hunting cats. And now she's like taking revenge from those who have done it wrong. Like kind of like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like second daughter, the cat slayer.
Do you think there's like a deleted scene where she's just in the woods like roasting a cat on a fire?
Lanthimos didn't have the budget for that back then. I don't know. We can't afford fire.
You can afford fire, yeah.
I don't think so.
Shit's pretty pricey, yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess that's the last question I had. So overall, I think we all agree.
Dogtooth, great film. It's an interesting choice for us to do. We don't do a lot of these older foreign films on the cast, so it's nice to change things up a little bit. Have our buddy on the show. Gavin, do you have anything else you want to contribute to the cast before we wrap up?
I'd give this a strong 10 to a light 11.
There you go. Transition. If you loved it, if you hate it, what would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should we review next? I'm going to get out of here. See you guys later.